Hey everybody, what's going on? Good afternoon. Had a little bit of motion on the Seattle Seahawks roster over the last couple of hours, so thought I'd go ahead and check in with a quick little video here to talk about the developments of today. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. So tomorrow is the first day of a 3-day mandatory minicamp for the Seahawks, and it looks like we're trying to make sure the roster's in as good a state as possible for that minicamp. So we got a couple things going on here. I'll go through them. I'll go through them as briefly as I can while still trying to give a meaningful rundown on what these two players are. So earlier today, the Seahawks met with a defensive back. He worked out with the Seahawks. It's not believed we're going to sign him anytime soon, but if somebody gets hurt or if somebody doesn't seem like they're playing at the level we hoped, like somebody who we're expecting to be on the back end of the roster maybe disappoints in some way, Ifeatu Melifonwu is possibly going to be on the list of guys we call up. Now, I don't know how many of you guys remember Melifonwu, but I remember scouting this guy a lot before the draft, the year he came out, which I believe was 2022. Maybe it was 2021, but actually, let me see here. Yeah, it was 2021. So I remember scouting this guy a lot because if you guys remember, this was the kind of defensive back that Pete Carroll gravitated towards. He wanted the long, lanky guys. He wanted the guys with a lot of size. He wanted the guys that could use their length to get their hands in on batted ball opportunities. He wanted the guys with the length to be effective tacklers. This was a very Pete Carroll kind of corner. So I remember liking him a lot. And so far, he hasn't had a great NFL career, but he's only 27, so he's just entering his physical prime. And he was a third round pick, a very late third round pick. He was almost a day 3 pick. So Melifonwu hasn't been great, but you wouldn't necessarily have expected him to be great based on what he was in college and what he was expected to be in the NFL. He was drafted by the Lions. He spent 4 years there. I think he's battled a lot of injuries, but you can see that when he's been healthy, there have been some good moments here. Back in 2023, a couple of picks, 3 sacks. Last year he played 16 games for the Dolphins, 53 tackles. So there is some stuff here that says he can play. I think the injuries have been the main thing that have kind of derailed his career, but he's not too bad. And I checked on Pro Football Focus here just to get an idea of what we might be talking about in terms of usage. And by the way, 2023 was the one year where he was actually graded really well. Other than that, his grades have been relatively lackluster, but they really liked him in 2023. Let me move my head here. Well, actually, no, I don't need to move my head. You can see that he lines up all over the place on defense. He in college, I assumed he was going to be an outside corner. So far, that has not really been the case. He's only played about 214 snaps as an outside corner. Almost all of those snaps came in his rookie year. He's played in the slot a good amount, 250 snaps, but he's mostly been a safety. He's played close to 1,100 total snaps as either a box safety or a free safety. So that has actually been his position so far, but he can do a little bit of everything in that secondary. If you like sports, then the best way to make them even better and more exciting is using the Prize Picks app, where it always feels good to be right. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy simple. Just pick more or less on your favorite players and build lineups with a few taps. Whatever sport you're into, and obviously we are now firmly into the NFL offseason, so we're all about baseball. We got some basketball, we got some hockey, whatever it is you like. Prize Picks gives you a fun way to stay locked in while you're watching. Definitely make sure to use the promo code HMA. Prize Picks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If you use that promo code, that is HMA. I've had a great time on Prize Picks so far, so definitely get on over to it, check it out, and make sure to get your lineups. And don't forget about Team Picks, where you can pick winners, spreads, and totals on any major game. So download the app now, use HMA, and get on over to Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And remember, always gamble responsibly. So when I see something like that, I can't help but get intrigued because I think Mike McDonald wants defensive backs, especially who can play anywhere. And a guy who can line up in the box, who can line up deep, and who can line up in the slot and even do a little outside corner stuff, even if most of that was as a rookie. That's intriguing to me. And he even occasionally lines up on the defensive line. I know that that's just probably like random scattered stuff here and there. That's not really like a focus of his game. But we are talking about a cornerback here who is showing you he can line up wherever he needs to. And that's intriguing because there are some physical tools here he has that other players do not. So Melifonwu, don't know if we're going to sign him, but it is notable that this is somebody we're kicking the tires on. It makes a good deal of sense for a defense like this one. Second thing is we signed an offensive lineman, Bobby Hart, and waived a little-known rookie wide receiver, Levi Wentz, to make room for him. So Bobby Hart now coming up to the 90-man roster for the time being. Now, Bobby Hart is probably a player you've heard of because he's been in the league for a long time, and he's actually played a lot. He's going to turn 32 in August, so he's not super old, but he's been around. He was a Giant for a while. He was with the Bengals, and then he's been bouncing around the league the last couple of years. He's started a good amount of games. He's played a lot. Never been anything over the top special, not been anything that is really coveted. In fact, yeah, okay, he's played in a few playoff games in his career, but not a lot. So Bobby Hart, not really somebody that you'd be excited to start, but you can see that even last year he started half the season for the Chargers. Now, the Chargers had incredible injury issues on their team. So much so that, as you can see, they had to pull Bobby Hart basically out of. I don't think he was retired, but he wasn't playing the previous 2 years at all. I don't think he was active for a single game in 2023 or 2024. And then they actually had to start him for 8 games. That's brutal. But Bobby Hart is a guy with a lot of experience. And if you go to his Pro Football Focus page, you can see that he's never really been graded terribly well, right? He's had 2020 was the one year he was kind of okay. But overall, he's been very much replacement level at best. It does occur to me, though, and this is worth noting. Let me bump my head over a little bit. Um, Almost all of his career snaps came at right tackle. Almost 5,000 snaps at right tackle, not even 150 at left tackle, like 75 total at guard, and then a little bit as a quote unquote tight end. So Bobby Hart, he is a right tackle. And right now, you take a look at the Seahawks, their backup right tackle is probably Amari Kite. Let me bump back over here. Amari Kite's probably the backup right tackle behind Lucas. Now, Josh Jones is serving as the backup tackle on both sides realistically, but of course, he can only play at one position at once. So if something happened to Cross and Lucas, you're in a situation where Jones takes one spot, but you're not feeling great about that other tackle spot. Right? It's Amari Kite, who played a tiny bit last year and played pretty good, but we have a very small sample size to work with. And somebody like a Bobby Hart playing for the minimum, which I'm sure is all he would get because he's not a very notable player and there's nothing overly appealing about him as a guy who you want out there on the football field. That kind of works. That might work. All right, so those are the two things that happened today. Looking at Melifonwu and looking at, or not looking, we've signed Bobby Hart. So we'll see if they make it through minicamp, which starts tomorrow. Go Hawks. See you guys later.